Before you scroll, understand this. Most people were never meant to hear this message. If this found you today, it's already too late to pretend nothing is happening. Because calls like this don't arrive gently, they interrupt, and only 7 are meant to receive it. You were not looking for this, and that is exactly why it found you now. Not because you searched, not because you were curious, not because you were bored, but because something precise located you where you are at this exact second. There are moments when life does not ask if you are ready. It simply steps closer, lowers its voice, and says your name in a way you cannot ignore. This is one of those moments. You may feel it already, that quiet pressure in your chest, that strange mix of confusion and recognition, as if something inside you is leaning forward before your mind can explain why. This is not coincidence, and it is not choice. You did not choose this message. You were identified, aligned, and found. There is a reason your life has always felt heavier than others, why certain doors closed without explanation, why your intuition stayed awake when others slept, why you felt watched, tested, examined by something you could never see. Only 7 are called in this cycle, not because they are perfect, but because they can endure what others would escape. And if you are still listening, it is because you are one of them. Understand the weight of this calmly, not emotionally. Leaving now means you will never understand why your path demanded more, why pressure followed you even in silence, why your soul refused ordinary answers. Staying means clarity, but clarity comes with responsibility, and not everyone is willing to carry that. Before we go further, pause for a second and mark this moment. Like this video as a sign of alignment, subscribe if you are not yet connected to this space, because messages like this are not random, they are timed, and write 99 in the comments as a spiritual confirmation that you are present, awake, and willing to receive what most never do. That number is not decoration, it is a seal of completion and readiness, and those who understand it feel it instantly. Now stay with me, because what comes next explains why your life could never remain ordinary, and why this call did not wait for your permission. Your life was never easy, and that was not an accident, a curse, or bad timing. Ease was never part of your design. Comfort creates rest, but resistance creates capacity, and only souls built to hold weight are shaped under pressure that would collapse others. This is where many people misunderstand their own story. They look at the pain and assume something went wrong, when in reality something was being tested. Every delay, every unfair turn, every moment where you had to stay strong without anyone noticing was not punishment. It was evaluation. You were being measured in silence, not by how loudly you suffered, but by how you carried yourself when no one offered support, applause, or explanations. You felt misunderstood because your depth did not match the surface-level world around you. You felt alone because you were often holding space for others while your own weight had nowhere to land. You absorbed pain that was not yours, tension that was never spoken, responsibility that was never officially assigned, and still you kept moving. Not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. That steadiness is rare. Most people fall apart when support disappears, when validation dries up, when strength is required without witnesses. You did not. Even in moments when you felt exhausted, even when you questioned yourself, even when you wondered why life demanded so much from you while giving others an easier path, you stayed upright. That is not personality, that is structure. Smooth paths are given to those meant to travel lightly. Heavy callings require uneven ground, because only resistance reveals what a soul can actually hold. This is why you are often expected to understand without being understood, to forgive without receiving apology, to stand firm without being held. It wasn't because you were invisible, it was because you were capable. And capability is never developed in comfort. The confusion you carried was not weakness, it was depth, searching for context. The pressure you felt was not anxiety, it was capacity being stretched. The sense that you had to grow up faster, mature sooner, see more clearly, was not unfairness, it was preparation. You were being shaped for something that could not rest on fragile foundations. Every time you thought, "Why is this so hard for me?" the answer was hidden in what you survived without losing yourself. Others break, become bitter, turn cold, or pass their pain forward. You didn't. You adapted, learned, refined, quietly. And that quiet endurance is the clearest signal there is. Because souls meant to carry weight are never introduced to life gently. They are tested early, pressed often, and strengthened invisibly. And that's exactly why your struggles were never small. Long before you realized anything was happening, before you had words for it, Before you even questioned why your life moved the way it did, you were already being observed. Not watched in a human way, not judged by opinions, rumors, or surface impressions, but monitored by a higher system that does not rush, does not explain itself, and never interferes unless something truly matters. This kind of observation is silent, precise, and patient. It does not announce itself, it waits. And that is why you felt patterns repeating instead of resolving, situations looping instead of closing, lessons returning in different faces until something inside you shifted. You may have called it bad luck, timing issues, or emotional sensitivity. But those cycles were not random. They were calibration points. Each repetition was testing your reaction, not the outcome. Would you grow resentful or more aware? Would you collapse or recalibrate? Would you lose your integrity when misunderstood, or keep it even when no one was watching? At the same time, your intuition kept proving itself right in ways that unsettled you. You sensed things before they happened. You felt shifts before they were visible. You knew when someone's energy changed, even if their words stayed polite. That was not imagination. That was perception being sharpened under observation. When people left your life without explanation, when connections dissolved abruptly, when conversations ended without closure, it wasn't abandonment and it wasn't rejection. It was filtration. Certain energies were removed because they could not move forward with you into what you were being prepared for, and preparation requires isolation at times, not as punishment, but as focus. You were not meant to be constantly surrounded. You were meant to be clear. The system observing you was not looking for perfection, it was looking for consistency. How you responded when plans collapsed, how you treated people when you gained nothing in return, how you handled silence, how you carried truth when it made you uncomfortable. Every delayed breakthrough, every unanswered question, every moment where you felt like life was testing you without giving instructions was part of a silent review. And the unsettling part is this: you passed stages of that review without knowing there was an exam. You kept moving forward without applause. You stayed aligned even when confused. That is why the pressure intensified instead of disappearing. Higher levels never feel lighter at first. They feel more exact. The reason this matters now is because observation always ends in decision. And when observation ends, activation begins. You weren't unlucky. You were under review. There is a reason the number is 7. Not because it sounds mystical, not because it is dramatic, but because it represents a precise threshold that very few can cross without losing themselves. 7 is not about quantity. It is about completion under pressure. It is the number that appears when something has been tested from every angle and still holds its shape. The masses are not excluded by force. They exclude themselves by preference. Most people seek relief, reassurance, safety, something that feels good quickly and costs little internally. There is nothing wrong with that, but it disqualifies them from certain paths. The 7 are different because they do not chase comfort, even when they desperately need it. They chase meaning, even when meaning demands sacrifice, patience, and internal conflict. That difference is subtle from the outside, but heavy on the inside. You have always felt more deeply than others, not emotionally unstable, but emotionally aware. You notice layers, you sense contradictions, you feel tension before it turns into words. That depth makes life richer, but it also makes it heavier. Add to that mental endurance, the ability to keep thinking clearly when emotions rise, to stay observant when situations grow chaotic, to hold perspective when others react impulsively. That kind of endurance is not taught. It is forged by repeated exposure to pressure without escape. And then there is the part few talk about: moral consistency under strain. The moment when cutting corners would have been easier, the times when bitterness would have been justified, the opportunities to become colder, sharper, less humane. You didn't take them, not because you were weak, but because something in you refused to trade integrity for relief. That refusal is costly. It isolates, it slows things down. It creates a sense of being out of sync with a world that rewards shortcuts. And that is exactly why only 7 are called. Because only a small number can hold emotional depth without drowning in it, mental endurance without becoming rigid, and moral consistency without becoming self-righteous. This is not a flattering calling. It is a demanding one. Being among the 7 means carrying clarity that others avoid, awareness that others numb, responsibility that others delegate. It means knowing more than you wish you knew at times, seeing patterns you cannot unsee, feeling consequences before they fully arrive. It makes you rare, yes, but rarity is not lightness, it is weight. And most people break under that weight long before they reach this point. And this is where most people would break, but you didn't. There was a moment in your life when something finally gave way, not loudly, not theatrically, but deep enough that you felt it in places you never talked about. A moment where you said, maybe out loud, maybe only inside, I can't do this anymore. That was not weakness. That was the exact point where the surface version of you stopped being enough to carry what was forming underneath. Awakenings do not arrive wrapped in joy, clarity, or celebration. They arrive disguised as collapse. They show up when the old structure can no longer hold the pressure of who you are becoming. That breaking point you remember, the one that still tightens your chest when you think about it, was not the end of your strength, it was the exposure of it. When everything familiar failed, something deeper stepped forward. You didn't suddenly feel powerful, you felt empty. You didn't feel inspired, you felt stripped. And yet, even there, something in you chose integrity over escape. You could have hardened, you could have turned cynical, you could have numbed yourself, blamed the world, abandoned your values, or become a smaller version of yourself just to survive. You didn't. Even broken, you remained precise. Even exhausted, you stayed honest. Even when bitterness would have felt justified, you refused to let it define you. That choice was not small. Continuing when you feel strong is common. Continuing when you feel hollow is rare. You moved forward without clarity, without reassurance, without knowing if anything would ever make sense again. That is not optimism. That is alignment at a level most never reach. You kept going not because you felt hope, but because something inside you knew stopping would cost you more than continuing. That moment of rupture was recorded, not remembered by people, not archived by memory, but marked as proof. Proof that your core holds when the outer layers fall apart. Proof that your values are not situational. Proof that you are not held together by comfort, but by structure. This is why that moment changed you, even if you couldn't explain how. You didn't return to who you were before because awakenings do not restore, they recalibrate. After that point, you saw differently, felt differently, tolerated less nonsense, sensed truth faster. The pain didn't disappear, but it lost its authority over you. That was activation. Quiet, brutal, precise. And the reason it matters now is because nothing that breaks you without destroying you is wasted. That moment wasn't your lowest point. It was your initiation. At some point, the focus shifts, quietly but completely, from who you are to why you are here. Identity was only the preparation. Mission is the reason. And this is where many misunderstand the nature of the call, because being chosen is often mistaken for being rewarded. It is not. Nothing about this is a prize. It is a responsibility that requires precision, restraint, and courage in places no one applauds. You were not selected to be kept safe from impact. You were selected to move into it with clarity when others freeze, to remain steady when systems fail, to hold direction when confusion spreads. That is why your life kept pushing you toward uncomfortable awareness. You were being trained to see clearly under pressure, not to be shielded from it. Part of that mission involves breaking cycles that existed long before you were aware of them. Patterns passed down quietly. Emotional inheritances, reactions that repeat across generations because no one had the structure to interrupt them without collapsing. You stepped into that interruption, not aggressively, not dramatically, but decisively. Ending inherited patterns requires discernment, not force. It means choosing differently even when familiarity pulls you backward. It means refusing to carry what does not belong to you, even when guilt or loyalty tries to bind you to it. This is where clarity becomes a burden, because once you see, you cannot unsee. When others collapse into reaction, you are expected to respond with intention. When others look away, you are expected to remain present. That expectation is heavy, and that is why solitude was not an accident in your life. You were separated before assignment, not because you were unworthy of connection, but because clarity cannot survive contamination. Too many voices distort purpose. Too much noise dulls discernment. You needed space to hear what was real. The loneliness you felt was not abandonment, it was insulation. You weren't isolated to be broken. You were isolated to stay uncontaminated. And here is the part that should land slowly. Being sent does not mean being loud. It means being exact. It means showing up where truth is needed, not where attention is easy. It means carrying responsibility without resentment, direction without dominance, authority without arrogance. The reason this moment matters is because sending always follows readiness, and readiness is never announced. It is recognized. Something is about to require you to move from internal alignment to external action, and that transition never happens without resistance. Stay aware, because the next shift will not ask if you are willing. It will reveal where you are needed. Today is not the end, and it is not a beginning in the way most people understand beginnings. It is alignment. Everything you heard, everything you felt, everything that stirred uncomfortably inside you was not meant to excite you. It was meant to place you back into position. This is the moment where the noise fades and the signal becomes clear. From this point forward, something changes quietly, but permanently. You will see with clarity instead of confusion. You will feel direction instead of pressure. You will sense guidance instead of fear. Not comfort, not ease, but a steady inner knowing that tells you where to stand, when to move, and what no longer deserves your energy. The old cycle did not end because something outside of you shifted. It ended because you outgrew it. What once felt heavy now feels small. What once controlled you now feels distant. That is not coincidence. That is maturity of spirit. And understand this clearly. Your name was called today not to flatter you, not to elevate your ego, but to confirm what has already been true beneath the surface. Timing matters. If this message reached you now, it is because now you can carry it. Not last year, not tomorrow, now. And once alignment happens, it cannot be reversed. You do not return to unawareness. You do not shrink back into old patterns. You do not pretend you did not hear what you heard. From this moment on, you walk with intention. You choose with precision. You carry responsibility without fear. Stay grounded in this truth. You are not late. You are not early. You are exact. If you are still here, write this in the comments. I am ready for what I was called for. Do not write it lightly. This is not a wish. It is a declaration. A line drawn between who you were surviving as and who you are stepping forward as. Let these final words settle deeply. Walk calmly. Move deliberately. Trust what is guiding you. And remember this. You were not found to be convinced. You were found because you were already ready.